All right, good morning, everyone. This is your extra practice and your instructional video for 5.MD.5. And the objective of today's lesson is to relate volume to operations of multiplication and addition and to solve real-world mathematical problems involving volume. So we've been talking about volume for I think 2 or 3 lessons before this. And this is the last volume lesson. This is basically taking everything that you've learned and applying the formula. So we've got 4 vocabulary words: volume, formula, right rectangular prism, and additive. So volume, we've talked a little bit about kind of what that means. It's basically just the amount of space occupied by a solid object. So it's the measurement. So it's the amount of space in a solid figure. And we use unit cubes to measure volume. And unit cubes, and the reason why I say unit cubes instead of cubic feet or feet cubed is because I don't know what unit we're using. So the generic term of volume measurement is unit cubes. All right, so formula, we've all talked about formula before. You've all used formulas before. But the definition of formula is when you have a series of mathematical operations using certain input numbers to get an important result. So it's a series of operations using certain steps. Okay? So basically, formula for area of a rectangle. Area equals length times width. You find the length and you find the width. You plug those numbers in and you find the area of a rectangle. So that's why it says input, because you're inputting the numbers that you have to that certain step. Right rectangular prism is a 3-dimensional shape with rectangles for bases and with faces perpendicular to the bases. It's this. It's a rectangular prism. So it has a rectangle for its base and rectangles for the faces. It's perpendicular. So to be a right rectangular prism, all rectangular prisms are right rectangular prisms, because what do you know about a rectangle? It has right angles. There are other prisms that are not rectangular or right rectangular prisms, but for this case, or for finding volume in this lesson, we're going to be using rectangular prisms. And additive means parts that can be added to make bigger ones. 2 unit cubes glued together to make a rectangular prism with a volume of 2 units. So basically, when you find volume and you add the parts of larger, or add the parts of smaller figures to find the total of the larger. Okay, and we'll talk about that at the end of this lesson. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the volume of this rectangular prism. Now, in the previous lessons, we figured out that the formula for volume, big V, equals L times W times H. Length times width times height. And we also talked about how to find that length times height. What this also is called. So we also talked that this length times width can also be called the base. It's like the bottom layer of what you are finding the volume of, and then you multiply that times how tall the shape is or the height. Okay, and because we can use the associative property here, it doesn't matter which one is the length, the width, and the height. Like I can turn this shape over. Like if I say that this is the length, this is the width, and this is the height, I can flip it and say that this is the length, this is the width, and this is the height, or this is the length, this is the width, this is the height. It doesn't matter because I can group these measurements any way I want to, and I'm still gonna get the same answer because of the associative property of multiplication. So we're gonna go ahead and just use this formula to find the volume of these shapes. So I am gonna say that this is the length, this is the width, and this is the height. So volume equals, now this is what the formula does. It's a series of operations using certain steps. So I'm gonna input these numbers. Instead of an L here, I'm gonna put a 3. Instead of a W here, I'm gonna put a 3. And instead of an H here, I'm gonna put a 2. So my volume is 3 times 3, which is my base, that's 9, times 2 is 18. The unit is inches, and that is cubed. Don't forget that cubed right there. And you can use a 3 exponent to show cubed. So this one over here, I'm gonna say that this is my length, this is my width, and this is my height. So my volume equals 4 times 2 times 4. Now you could, if you wanted to, like I'm just gonna go ahead and multiply 4 times 2 and then multiply that by 4. But if you wanted to, you could group the 4 and the 4 together. You could in your head or on the piece of paper separately or underneath it even, you could write 4 times 4 times 2. And you could group those together. So then you would have 16 times 2. Now, I actually would have to kind of think a little bit about 16 times 2 in my head, but I can do 4 times 2 in my head, which is 8 times 4, which is 32 inches cubed. So that one was actually easier for me to just go straight across. So this next one, I'm gonna say that this is the length, this is the width, and this is the height. So it is going to look like this. Volume equals 5 times 7 times 6, right? Now, for me, I'm gonna group these differently, okay? I'm gonna draw a little arrow here, and I'm gonna write volume equals 5 times 6 times 7. And the reason why I'm doing that is because 5 times 6 is 30, and it ends in a 0, and I can easily multiply 30 times 7 in my head. But if I were to do it going this way, if I were to do 5 times 7, that equals 35, I can't multiply 35 times 6 in my head as fast as I can multiply 30 times 7. So I'm just gonna group them a little differently, and I'm gonna get volume equals 30 times 7. Well, 3 times 7 is 21, so 30 times 7 is 210. My unit is inches cubed, okay? All right, the next one says a cube is a rectangular prism with the same measurement for length, width, and height. So basically what that is saying is cubes are just fancy, and we talked about this in the last lesson, cubes are just fancy names for rectangular prisms. A cube has to have an equal length, width, and height because cubes are made out of squares, right? So it has to have 4 equal sides. So in this case, it says the cube is 4 inches tall. What is the volume? And you might be going, oh, I don't know what the width and the height is. Well, you do, because in a cube, all of the units of measure, or all the measurements are the same because it's based off a square. So if the height, or if it's 4 inches tall, which is the height, equals 4, then what's the width? It's also 4. And what's the length? It's also 4. So your formula, length times width times height, you input the numbers 4 times 4 times 4. And your volume is 64. And this says inches cubed. Okay. The next one we're going to be doing is another word problem. And it says, so you got to read this one carefully because it might get tricky. A block that is 2 inches wide, 3 inches long, and 2 inches tall. What is the volume of a tower that is built by 3 of these blocks? So you have to find the volume of the block, but then what do you have to do after that to find the final answer? Because this tower is made up of 3 of the blocks. So first I'm going to find the volume of this block. So it says It's a 2 by 3 by 2. So volume equals 2 by 3 by 2. So the volume equals 12 inches cubed, right? That's just one of the blocks. But the question is, what is the volume of a tower that is built by 3 of the blocks? So there are 3 blocks stacked. I've never done this before. It wasn't very good. 3 blocks stacked up. So if one volume, or if the volume of one is 12, how do I find the volume of this whole thing? So you could do 12 plus 12 plus 12 as an additive, or you could do 12 times 3, which equals 36 inches cubed. Okay, this next one says Joshua bought 5 boxes. Actually, it should say 3 boxes, because I only gave you 3 options. The dimensions of each box are listed below. Select the boxes with a volume. Select the boxes that have a volume of 144 cubic feet. So basically what we have to do is solve volume for each one of these boxes and figure out which one has 144, which one is the answer of 144. That's basically it. So if the length here is 6, the width is 2, the base of this shape would be 12, and then the height is 12. What do you know about that? 12 times 12 equals 144. So definitely this is feet cubed. Definitely this one. But it says select the boxes. So there might be more than one, which means we have to keep going to make sure these two also either do have 144 cubic feet or don't. So length equals 2 times 2 times 8. So volume equals 32 feet cubed. It's not this one. And then over here, we've got 3, volume equals 3 times 2 times 8. So volume equals 6 times 8, which is 48 feet cubed. So it's not this one either. So it's just this box has a volume of 144 cubic feet. Okay, this next one. The volume of a rectangular prism is 40 cubic feet. The rectangular prism has a height of 4 feet. Select the possible base for the box. So basically, this is like the 2-dimensional base, or like first layer of the box. We got to figure out what would be the length and the width of this. So what would be the multiplication problem that I would multiply by to get this base, and then multiply that by 4 to see if I get 40, okay? So let's say that this length is 2 and this width is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Width equals 5. This length is 4 and the width is 3. This length is 3 and this width is 3. So the base here equals 10 feet. The base here equals 12 feet, and the base for this one equals 9 feet, okay? So here's each one of the bases. Well, the rectangular prism is 40, and its height is 4. So what do I do to 10 feet? I do 10 times, volume equals 10 times 4, so volume equals 40 feet cubed. So this one works. This base is correct for a 40 cubic feet rectangular prism. Does this one work? So volume equals 12 times 4. Well, is 12 times 4 40? No, it's not. And then this one, volume equals 9 times 4. Is 9 times 4 40? No, it's not. So A wins. All right, these last two. So you're using your formula for finding volume to solve for each one of these, like the smaller sections, and then you're adding it together to find the larger volume of both shapes. So in this case, and so you might look at it and be like, that's pretty confusing. I don't know what to do here. Well, if you look at it, you can really figure out what the length, the width, and the height is of all these shapes. So I'm going to do this first. I'm going to call this box A and this box B. So volume of box A. I'm going to write it like that. So the length, that's the length, 10. The width is 3, and the height is 2. So the volume of box A equals 30 times 2 is 60 centimeters cubed, okay? Volume of box B. Here's box B right here. All right, so the length, we're gonna just call this the length right here. Oh my gosh, there's nothing written there. Well, you know that this is 6, right? And you know that this is 10. Let me get colored markers out for you. This is 6, and this is 10, right? So then what would that section be right here? What would the purple line be? Well, what's 10 minus 6? 4. So this length right here would be 4 because that's what's left over. So I have a length of 4, and then what is my width? Well, it's the same thing as down here. So it's 3, and then my height is 4. So the volume of rectangular prism B, 4 times 3 is 12, times 4 is 48 centimeters cubed. And then you were to add those two, so the volume of this whole shape is 108 centimeters cubed, okay? All right, this one, let's call this rectangular prism C and this rectangular prism D. So volume of rectangular prism C, I have a length of 10, a width of 3, and a height of 6. So my volume of rectangular prism C is 30, actually I'm gonna group these two together, 18 times 10 is 180 centimeters cubed. Volume of rectangular prism D. All right, so this is the tricky part. This is where we have to figure everything out. Well, I know I've already got a length of 8, great. I don't have to figure anything out for that one. And then my width is gonna be the same. So you notice if this is the width, this is also the width. They line up perfectly, so they are the same. So my width is 3. Now I need to find my height. Okay, so the height of all of them, or both shapes put together, is 12, right? Well, you know that the height of C is 6. So then what would be the height of D? What's left over? If this is 6 right here, what would this be? It would be 6. So you know your height is 6. So volume of rectangular prism D, I am going to group them. Does it even matter how I group this? I don't really think it does. So 24 times 6 equals 144 centimeters squared. Am I done? No. That's D, that's C. I need to add them together to get the total volume, and the total volume is 324 centimeters cubed. Got it? All right, so if you haven't already, please print this out and do the work on your own, or you don't have to print it out at all. You can just get a piece of paper out and write down your answers to do this practice. If you watch this video and you've done this practice, you should have no problem with the interactive notebook, and then also no problem with the quiz on Friday. I hope you guys have a good day.